Ladies and gentlemen, Kalispera, good evening. It's a great honor for me to welcome you all to the annual meeting of the Danish Institute in Athens, here in this splendid location. I am Marianne Pade. I'm chair of the board of the Institute, which has had a very busy year. We have first been very fortunate to be able to employ Dr. Sanne Hoffmann as the new director of the Institute. She took up the position only in February. And we immediately together began the process of hiring a new vice director from a very strong group of applicants. The candidate we chose will take up his position here in mid-May, and together with Dr. Hoffmann, he will form a strong team which will continue and develop the work of the Danish Institute here in Athens. Tonight's program will begin with a presentation of the Institute's activities in 2023 by its director, Dr. Sanne Hoffmann. Then follows a musical intermezzo by Diathlasis vocal ensemble, which will perform compositions by the Danish composer Carl Bergstrøm-Nielsen. And lastly, Carlsberg Research Fellow at the Danish Institute, Dr. Panagiotis Athanasopoulos, will talk about Post-Excavation Adventures, the curious case of the Lechaion Harbour Project. Σας ευχαριστώ για την προσοχή. Thank you for your attention. I now give the word to the director of the Danish Institute, Dr. Sanne Hoffmann. Thank you.
So, first of all, I would like to thank Marianne for the very kind introduction. And then, dear honored guests, dear colleagues and friends of the Danish Institute, it is also a great pleasure and privilege for me to welcome you all this evening to the 32nd annual open meeting of the Danish Institute at Athens. First, I would like, on behalf of the Institute and all of our associates, to send our warmest thanks to the Greek Ministry of Culture and Sport and all the archaeological efforts which we have had the opportunity to collaborate with in 2023 and many of the years before. We take great pride in being part of the very positive, fruitful and important collaborations between the foreign institutes and the Greek Ministry and the efforts, and are very grateful to all that we have had the privilege of collaborating with. The Danish Institute also wishes to acknowledge and thank our board and all its members, representing the conglomerate of institutions which administer, facilitate and support us, and to all of which we are very grateful. I also want to personally acknowledge and thank the staff of the Institute during 2023, which besides myself included Mogens Pelt, John Lund, Panagiotis Athanasopoulos, Kirsten Brinkmann Sørensen, Niki Buras, Joanna Thanasi, Maxi Thanasi, and Anna Trianto. It is their steadfast work, dedication, and positive spirit that drives the Institute and our purpose forward and keeps us steady through busy times. So thank you all. The Danish Institute at Athens is both a research and cultural institute, and one of the primary ways in which we can facilitate and promote academic and cultural work is through our residencies. Supported by generous grants from the New Carlsberg Foundation and the GECL Foundation, we had the pleasure of housing altogether 99 artists, scholars, teachers, and students in the Institute guest rooms. The number of applicants keep rising with each application deadline, and we are most grateful for the interest as well as the generosity of the foundations that allow us to continue to house and facilitate so many dedicated researchers and artists each year. Education is a large part of the work of the Danish Institute at Athens. In collaboration with the Embassy of Denmark in Athens, the Institute has the pleasure of receiving numerous classes from the Danish Language and Science Gymnasia. We also assist the schools with their visits to the many cultural and archaeological sites in Greece. In 2023, the Danish Institute helped 32 schools with their excursions in Greece and hosted 20 classes that visited the Institute to learn about our work and to learn about Greece. We take great pride in our educational programs and the organization and housing of courses. In 2023, in February, the Institute organized a course for teachers from Danish gymnasia, and in July, in an essential collaboration with classical philologist Christian Borg-Thorsen, we organized a course in ancient Greek for Danish university students. Both courses were fully booked and very well received, both offering lectures at the Danish Institute and on-site learning within the numerous historical and archaeological sites in Athens and Greece. The Institute, of course, also offers a cultural program with various activities throughout the year. And what you see on the screen now is a visual representation of all the lectures we held during 2023. As the illustrations indicate, hopefully, many esteemed scholars touched on a wide variety of themes throughout the year. And, as the titles also show, we enjoyed talks on iconoclasm and the Islamic State by Terne Thorsen, the Harbors of Iberis by Bjørn Lovén, Aristotle's Poetics by Clara Marie Vestergaard, Greek Studies in Renaissance Italy by Marianne Pade, Mosaics in Halicarnassos by Birte Poulsen, Gladiatorial Games in the East by Jesper Carlsen, Early Danish Work in Macedonia by Stine Sirup, The Connection Between Solar Iconography in Denmark and the Mediterranean by Flemming Kaul, Migration in the Eastern Mediterranean by Christian Amitsbøl Thomsen, and The Transformative Power of Architecture by Mogens A. Morgen. And we do have some of the lecturers with us tonight also, so you might get the opportunity to discuss the topics further later this evening. And then now you may wonder which of these illustrations go with which lecture. And I think we could do a little quiz on it, but hopefully it is relatively self-evident. But if you are in doubt, you can go to our website, where all the information on our lectures and other activities can be found. You can sign up for our newsletter, and you can also follow our work on Facebook, where we also post on our activities. In November 23, we also started our lecture series on underwater archaeology and cultural resources, methodology, preservation, and communication, a dialogue between Denmark and Greece. The purpose was, and is, as implied by the title, to cast a light on the two countries who are both on the forefront of exploring, preserving, and communicating underwater cultural heritage, and to create a dialogue between experts from both areas, while also sharing the topic with a broad audience. This series has allowed the Danish Institute to facilitate new conversations and new connections between two geographically distant but scientifically very close parties. It was a passion project for me personally, but as such, passion only gets you so far. So I was very grateful for my brilliant and knowledgeable co-organizers, Athena Tragadas, Panagiotis Athanasopoulos, and Dimitris Kokomelis. So thank you for your work. In 2023, we specifically had lectures introducing the themes by Athena Tragadas and Clara Fiedler, and we had lectures on methodology by Maria Geraja and Peter Mo Astrup. I will also point out that in 2023, we started to live stream our lectures, and that we also started to record again our events. So these lectures, along with other events, can now be viewed on our YouTube channel. The Institute also partook in and housed a selection of seminars touching on several different topics, such as the Greek-German relations through the ages with Christos Takas, Christina Kouluri, Alexander Nützennadel, and Mogens Pilt, and the struggle against the Greek dictatorship in Scandinavia with Sotiris Suliotis, Mogens Pilt, Birgitte Rahbek, Nikis Theophilakis, and Axel Sotiris Valdén, and also on Herman Bang and his novel Tine with Mogens Pilt, Dimitrios Protopapas, and Ulla Kjær Jørgensen Protopapa. And finally, the Roman seminar lectures had a lecture on monumental public architecture at Stoby by Gotche Pawlowski. In 2023, the Institute presented a broad spectrum of cultural activities as well, such as exhibitions as the No Self-Control at Space 52, and our artist talks, for instance, by Tore Hellas, talking about fatness as queerness as it relates to religion and myth. And we had performances such as the Sapphic performance by Maja Pedersen, I Compare You to a Young Slender Shoot. Tore and Maja were both residents at the Danish Institute at Athens, and as such they were supported by the New Carlsberg Foundation. We also had the opportunity to support musical performances, both in the auspice of the Institute, such as the VH1 Ensemble, which you can also experience again next week on Friday at the Institute. We also had Christos Farmakis, whom you might remember from last year's annual meeting, and we had the Danish group I Think You're Awesome, whose participation in the Athens Jazz Festival 2023 was supported by the Danish Institute, as has been a long tradition and collaboration for the Institute that we highly appreciate. In 2023, we had a continuation of our collaboration with the Embassy of Denmark in Athens for screening of a series of Danish movies at the Institute. They were introduced and discussed by Greek film historian Ioanna Athanasopoulos, and we are happy to be able to collaborate with the Embassy and so participate in the promotion of Danish films in Greece. Last year, we were all shocked and saddened to learn that Rune Frederiksen had suddenly and tragically passed away. Rune was director of the Danish Institute from 2010 to 2015, which was of course just a small part of his otherwise impressive academic career. And his passing was a great loss, as a family man, a gifted scholar, and certainly also as a mentor for the many students taking part in his fieldwork, whom he supported, uplifted, and left a lasting impression on. Many of whom have shared with me how much they appreciated him as a teacher and as the warm human being he was, always smiling and lifting spirits on hot days. We extend again our deepest condolences to Rune's family and many friends, and we will remember him, among many things, for the dedication and joy with which he walked through life. Shortly before he passed, in May 2023, he saw the finished version of the handsome publication of the Ancient Theatre at Kalydon in Aetolia, Volume 1 and 2, edited in collaboration with Dr. Olympia Vicato. It is a very important work publishing the results of fieldwork in Kalydon that took place in the Ancient Theatre from 2011 to 2014. The work and the results published brings new and important knowledge to the development and use of ancient Greek theatres and thus to the understanding of life in ancient Greece. And on May 13, next month, we will host a presentation on the book at the Institute, for which you are also all very welcome to join. And now I will proceed with the presentation of the archaeological projects of the Institute. The first is the Finding Old Lechaion project. This was started by Rune Frederiksen in 2015, and when he moved on to a position at the New Carlsberg Glyptotek, it was continued by his wife, Dr. Silke Mødt Frederiksen. And so, the collaboration project on the archaic classical polis of Lechaion in the northeastern Peloponnese was directed by Dr. Konstantinos Kissas from the Ministry of Culture in Greece and Dr. Silke Mødt Frederiksen, formerly at the National Museum of Denmark and the Danish Institute at Athens. Funding was provided by the Carlsberg Foundation with contributions by the Gösta Enbom Foundation. The main focus of the project was the urban fabric and material culture of the pre-Hellenistic city. Field studies have been terminated in 2019 and study season in 2021. In 2023, the focus was entirely directed on the preparation of the main publications. The publications of the project's results will comprise two major volumes, one on the surveys of 2015 to 17 and one on the excavations in 2017 to 19. The text for both publications are collected, the editing is finished, and the peer review phase will start soon. A master thesis on monumental grave buildings in the Peloponnese in the late classical and Hellenistic periods, including the grave monument from Trench 7C, excavated by the old Lechaion Project, has been submitted to the University of Crete by Gabriela Poulakaki, who was the trench supervisor of the excavated monument in March 2023. Of the 5 PhD theses written in the frame of the project, 3 were delivered and defended in 2021 and 22, while 2 more PhD theses are still ongoing. In Calydon, the investigations of the sanctuary on the Lafrion Hill and in the Heroon outside the city continue from 2022. The project is carried out in collaboration with the effort of Antiquities of Aetolo Acarnania and Lefkada and directed by the former effort Dr. Olympia Vicato and Dr. Søren Handberg, Associate Professor of Classical Archaeology at the University of Oslo. Through combining legacy data and new investigations in the field, the project focuses on conducting a comprehensive reassessment of the results and interpretations of the excavation from 1920 and 1930s, which were conducted under the direction of Frederik Poulsen and Konstantinos Romaios. The overall aim of the project is to produce a new historical account of the sanctuary's development and cultural historical significance. In 2023, excavations were conducted in 10 locations in the area of the sanctuary and the Heroon, and this report will cover the most noteworthy discoveries in the 4 of the areas at Building N, in the central part of the sanctuary, and in the Heroon. I could try to point. Yeah, okay. Heroon, Building N. Can you see anything? And the central part down here. About. So. A small pit was excavated in Building N, likely a small antitemple of the 5th century BCE. The pit is easily distinguished from the surrounding soil due to its ashy sediment. The pit dates to the Roman period and contained a variety of fragmented materials, including lamps and hairpins and worked bone. The discovery of this pit is noteworthy because there is a very scarce evidence for activity in the sanctuary in this period. On the southeastern slope of the hill, in the central part of the sanctuary, 2 small sections were excavated into an ash deposit identified in 2022. The deposit, which is situated stratigraphically beneath later terrace walls, yielded hundreds of burnt animal bone as well as pottery fragments spanning from the later 7th to the 6th century BCE, indicating that its formation is related to the earliest temple phase of the sanctuary. According to Dr. Angelos Hadjikoumi's ongoing study of the faunal remains, the majority of the sacrificial animals consist of caprins, goat and sheep, but cattle and pigs are also attested in the faunal assemblage. In the future, it will be interesting to compare the faunal remains with those of an archaic deposit excavated in 2022, which does not seem to be related to sacrifices. To the north of the ash deposit in the central part of the sanctuary, the project started its exploration of the structure known as Building H. The structure was first identified in 1926 and believed to be one of the earliest buildings in the sanctuary. However, the lack of finds has precluded a more precise date for its construction. The excavations in 2023 revealed a compact yellowish layer within the confines of the 2 walls of the structure, which is likely to have been its original floor. The potential floor layer is absent in the eastern part of the trench, where a darker layer saturated with smaller stones was exposed. The cleaning of this lower layer produced hundreds of pottery fragments and stone tools dating to the early and most likely also the Middle Helladic period. The layer appears to be a larger leveling layer from prehistoric material. This now allows us to count Calydon among the only 8 known sites from the region dating to the early Helladic period. 3 search trenches were excavated in room 1 in the Heroon complex to provide evidence for the Palestro's construction date, which has been contested ever since its excavation in the 1920s and 30s. A leveling fill with an assemblage of pottery was discovered beneath the floor level in room 1, the study of which might finally solve the question of the complex construction date. In the larger nearby rectangular hall with marble benches, in room 7, where the majority of the sculptures were discovered, one in situ marble bench was removed to collect soil samples in an attempt to better understand the formation process involved in the building's destruction. The project has submitted a preliminary report that will appear in the forthcoming volume of the proceedings of the Danish Institute at Athens, and would like to take this opportunity to thank the Hellenic Ministry of Culture and Sports for granting permission to carry out the project. The project also expresses its sincere gratitude to the Augustinus Foundation for generous financial support, as well as to all the collaborating institutions and individuals for their invaluable contributions to the research project. Under the Calydon umbrella, we have also the project The Heroon of Calydon and its sculptures. The project has been reinvestigating the Heroon and its assemblages of sculptures through digital methods, archival research, and renewed archaeological fieldwork. It is directed by Dr. Troels Mørup Christensen from Aarhus University in collaboration with Dr. Stine Birk, Dr. Signe Barfod, and Dr. Søren Hanberg. Future publications include a contribution to the coming proceedings of the Danish Institute at Athens, as well as an article of the work of Frederik Poulsen in Calydons Heroon. The work in 2023 has focused on publishing first findings and initiating new fieldwork in the Heroon. The project will continue its fieldwork in 2024, and on the 13th and 14th of June in 2024, it will host an international workshop entitled Digital Archaeologies of Classical Sculpture in collaboration with colleagues from Groningen and Saarbrücken. The project would like to express its sincere gratitude to the effort of Antiquities of Aetolo Acarnania and Lefkada, the Agrinium Archaeological Museum, and the Carlsberg Foundation for their ongoing support. Dr. Signe Barfod launched the research project Rediscovering Artemis in 2016, and the Carlsberg Foundation, the Elisabeth Munksgaard Foundation, the Svend Fiedler and Wife Foundation, and the Norwegian Institute at Athens Travel Stipend have all provided financial support through the years. In Rediscovering Artemis, pottery and other small finds discovered during the excavations of the Artemis Lafria Sanctuary in Calydon, Aetolia in the 1920s and 30s are studied and published. The excavations were directed by Frederik Poulsen, the then director of the Ny Carlsberg Glyptotek in Copenhagen, in cooperation with the Danish architect Einar Dygve and the Greek archaeologist Konstantinos Romaios. The pottery and votives found during the sanctuary excavations were left out of the 1948 publication of the Architecture and Topography, and Dr. Barfod is currently analyzing and preparing this large find assemblage for publication. In 2023, the first manuscript concerning the publication of the pottery from the sanctuary has been submitted to the publisher. The manuscript will be published in the Danish Institute of Athens monograph series, Ultimo 2024. Funding pending, if anybody has anything they want to contribute. The next step in the project is to publish the terracotta objects and small finds. 2 study campaigns are planned for 2024, with primary focus on terracotta figurines and protomes. Based on a preliminary rough count, the number of terracotta objects is estimated to be around 2,500. The next phase of the project will focus on classifying all of the objects into types and subtypes, while also examining the various glaze and production methods. The terracotta objects gives the impression that we are dealing with a diverse collection of votive terracottas from the late Bronze Age through the Hellenistic period. On the slide, you see a few examples of some of the already examined terracotta figurines. On the upper left corner, there is a small I'm missing one. On the upper left corner, a bovine terracotta figurine is dating to the Mycenaean period of the late Bronze Age. The red painted decoration is now almost completely worn off. In the lower left corner, there is a small terracotta plaque depicting a gorgon that dates to the Archaic period. Frequently, these objects were perforated, and we can envision them being exhibited on the walls of the temple or perhaps being suspended close to the altar. Two figurines of Artemis can be seen on the right side of the slide. The goddess is holding a bow in her left hand, and a young deer is perched on her right arm. The assemblage from the sanctuary contains numerous examples of this kind of terracotta figurine, which date to the late Archaic to the early Classical period. The figurine below is made of the typical orange gritty clay from Calydon, while the figurine above is made of light clay, typical of Corinth. These two figurines demonstrate not only the close relationship between the two cities, but also the local votive production that occurred in Calydon in the late Archaic Classical period. This facet of the terracotta production process will be thoroughly examined in the future as part of the project Rediscovering Artemis. The project extends its gratitude to numerous individuals and institutions, with particular acknowledgement to the staff at the National Archaeological Museum of Athens for their significant contributions to its achievements. And now moving on to the Lechaion Harbour Project. The project was initiated in 2013 as a collaboration between the University of Copenhagen, the Department of Underwater Antiquities of the Greek Ministry of Culture, and the Danish Institute at Athens, and has been primarily funded by the Augustinus Foundation and the Carlsberg Foundation. The project is directed by Bjørn Lové and Dimitris Kokomelis, with Paraskevi Misha and Panagiotis Athanasopoulos as the assistant directors. The conducted fieldwork from 2013 to 2018 yielded important archaeological results and grew to become one of the largest archaeological harbour projects carried out in Europe. In 2020, with the generous support of the Carlsberg Foundation, we initiated a publication project for the first 6 years of excavations in Lechaion under the Danish Institute at Athens. The aim of the project is to study and present the archaeological, historical, and topographical transformations of the Lechaion area based on the results of the archaeological and geological investigations and contribute towards the better understanding of one of the largest and most important ancient harbors of the Mediterranean Sea. And you will, of course, get to hear a little bit more about this project shortly. So this is where I end the presentation of the Institute activities of 2023, and I thank you all for your attention. Thank you. And now the time has come to the musical intermezzo. And it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Diathlasis vocal ensemble that will be performing compositions by Carl Bergstrøm-Nielsen. The Diathlasis vocal ensemble was founded in 2020 by conductor Konstantinas Samakovli and vocalist and voice coach Panagiotis. The group's performances initially focused on Greek traditional songs with a strong emphasis on improvisation. Each performance offers a unique and dynamic experience. As the group evolved, they felt compelled to create a piece that reflects their thoughts on separation and unity. To enhance their performances, the ensemble began incorporating modern graphic scores. These performances have taken place at prestigious venues such as Megaron Musikis, the Danish Institute at Athens, Philippos Nakos Conservatory, and Attikon Odeon. The Diathlasis ensemble is comprised of talented musicians, singers, and music enthusiasts. The goal is to create engaging dialogues and intricate polyphonic textures, while also showcasing the diverse capabilities of the human voice. Carl Bergstrøm-Nielsen is a composer from Denmark. He has taught improvisation and composition at Aalborg University and organized music events internationally, and his compositions have been performed in 25 countries. Since long, he has cultivated an intense collaboration with Greek fellow composers and musicians, which has led to several periods of residence at the Danish Institute at Athens. And so, I proudly present to you Diathlasis vocal ensemble performing compositions by Carl Bergstrøm-Nielsen.
Dear audience, Diathlasis Ensemble are pioneers in experimental music. They strive to cultivate a new way of being together musically. They have a very dynamic and direct relationship between individual and the group. So this is not very top-down. Imagine a melody and a bass that's very much top-down. But here you cannot tell which voice is more important, because they are equally important. And yes, it's a symposium. And with another Greek word, it's a polyphony. And my compositions are frameworks, just frameworks, and the ensemble make their own improvisations within these frameworks. So, well, there might be a picture coming up or not. Oh. Anyway, when listening, imagine that you are looking at an abstract picture of art. Imagine that, simply.
Piece, we would like Mr. Carl-Nielsen to come here with us and conduct and we would like to thank him for the invitation and the trust and this challenging and innovative and wonderful graphic scores and music that he's providing to us. And Carl, tack for tid. Thank you for the trust.
Thank you very much.
So first of all, thank you very much to Diathlasis Vocal Ensemble and Carl Bergstrøm-Nielsen for putting on a quite captivating performance, and thank you for putting a wonderful and unique touch on tonight's evening as well. And then now it is my pleasure to introduce Panagiotis Athanasopoulos. Panagiotis Athanasopoulos is a PhD candidate at the Department of Archaeology of the University of Ljubljana, Slovenia. He's a Carlsberg Fellow at the Danish Institute at Athens and the Assistant Director of the Lechaion Harbour Project. He studied archaeology in Greece and England and has participated in many land and underwater archaeological projects in Greece and abroad. His main research focus is on ancient harbors, and tonight we get to hear him lecture on Post-Excavation Adventures, the curious case of the Lechaion Harbour Project. So please welcome Panos Athanasopoulos.
Good evening. Dear members of the board, dear friends, dear colleagues, thank you all for coming. Dear Sanne, Nikki, Kirsten, Mons, Maxi, Joanna, and Anna, thank you very much for the invitation for today. I had a different introduction in mind, and I wanted to talk to you a little bit about how overwhelming it is to lecture in a place like the one that we're privileged to be today. But then listening to Carl's work and the ensemble, which is equally fascinating and overwhelming, I'm only thinking how that this is the epitome of what the Danish Institute is trying to do as a cultural institution and how it embraces all forms of art. And this is quite important for a foreign school in Greece. And we moved from what Sanne said before about the many different projects of the Institute to what we listened by the ensemble, the Diathlasis ensemble, and Carl's work. And now we're going to go to archaeology again and to Lechaion. When Sanne first approached me a few months ago about giving the lecture today, I immediately thought that this is a great opportunity for me to give a lecture, like a personal farewell to the Danish Institute at Athens. However, she made it quite clear that she's not expecting, or she doesn't want a very emotional farewell lecture by me, but rather she prefers a very festive talk, and therefore I obliged. So don't worry about the ominous opening slide. It's going to get a lot lighter, a lot more colorful. And I'm apologizing already because I have a bit of a sore throat. I'm coughing a bit, so please bear with me throughout. And obviously, I will start with a very fast personal note because this year, 2024, marks my 20th year anniversary of being involved with the activities of the Danish Institute at Athens. 20 years, like a lifetime. And those 20 years sort of transformed me from being a very young and enthusiastic and naive undergrad student of archaeology with very dark hair and a very glowing dark beard to what I am today, an archaeologist equally enthusiastic, equally naive, obviously, and with a lot more gray hair and a gray beard. But this journey had a lot of stress, endless hours of work, like tons of disappointments and struggles, as we all had in this profession. But more importantly, for me, it allowed me to do my job. It allowed me to do archaeology in perfect conditions, to participate in research, top-level research throughout these years, to meet and collaborate with amazing people from all over the world, not just Denmark or Greece, and eventually to develop skills, not only in archaeology, but also outside of archaeology, and skills that I didn't even know that I possessed. So in a way, to learn my limits, both professionally, academically, and personally. So Enough with a personal note. But within this frame, under the very welcoming wings of the Danish Institute, and this is a festive way to say under the auspices of the Danish Institute at Athens, we decided to embark on a new project in 2013 in the harbor of Lechaion in Corinth, in Greece, obviously. And the project, as you heard before, is a collaboration between the Department of Underwater Antiquities of the Greek Ministry of Culture and the Danish Institute at Athens. The directors of the project are Dimitris Kourkoumelis and Paraskivi Micha and Bjorn Lovin. It goes without saying, but I need to stress that, again, that nothing of what you will see and hear today would have been possible without the support of the Carlsberg Foundation and the Agustinus Foundation. Very, very important. The city of Corinth is arguably one of the most important ancient cities. It has a very long tradition. It has always been in the forefront of every historical event. It has been a mega producer of goods and a leading commercial power both on land and on the sea. The excavations, the more than 100 years of excavations, excuse me, the more than 100 years of excavations in the area by the American School of Classical Studies in Athens and the Greek Archaeological Services have proven that beyond any doubt. However, the nearby harbor area of Lechaion, which is only like 3 kilometers away from the city of Corinth, and also beyond any doubt has played a very important role in the prosperity of the city of Corinth, has been somewhat neglected throughout those years. And there have been some small-scale attempts by fellow archaeologists to investigate the area, but as I said, it was only small scale. Very important, yet in a small scale. And there are very good reasons for that, why this never happened before. The first one is the size of the site. We are dealing with an area that it's a harbor area that is more than 500,000 square meters. Only the harbor front, this is not necessarily working, but anyway, the harbor front is the one being on the coast, is longer than 1 kilometer. It also extends a lot inland in what eventually is what we call an artificial, a dugout harbor. The second reason is that there is this mixed environment in the area that changes from being in the open sea and having submerged remains to moving inland to a wetland, a marsh in a sense, and also with strips of dry land. So this mixed ecosystem, let's say, requires specific attention, and the means for archaeological prospection are different and has to be different. The third reason that we didn't have any large-scale project there is that in the area we rarely have favorable weather conditions. There are hard winds blowing throughout the year. The weather is changeable even within the same day. It might change from being sunny to rainy, windy, and so on. It is surrounded by mountains, so that means that it has its own microclimate, and it's at the very edge, at the very end of a very closed bay, a Corinthian Gulf, that leads to the Ionian Islands and then to the Adriatic Sea. And all that, on top of all that, is that this is a very seismic area. Tectonically, it's very active. And finally, for all the above, in order to go and do a project there, you need substantial funding, exactly to overcome all those issues that we discussed before. However, regardless of that, we were brave enough and obviously had the adequate support by the foundations, Carlsberg Foundation and Agustinus Foundation, as I said before, to proceed on what became eventually the first systematic excavation and study of the ancient harbor of Lechaion, and eventually grew to be one of the largest harbor projects in Europe. And the site really worth every struggle and every drawback, and they were quite a lot throughout those years of work there, both on and off the site. But definitely it worth spending time and having a project there. And as I said, we started in 2013, and for the next 6 excavation seasons that we had, we touched upon a relatively large part of the harbor, and we had very important results. We did answer a lot of research questions, and obviously, as many of you archaeologists in the crowd, after you answer certain questions, when you go on the field, then you have a lot more created at the end. And this is exactly the case. We did excavate hundreds of square meters of port structures. We managed to delineate the limits of the harbor area. We came across finds that allowed us to provide a chronological framework of use for the area. And obviously we excavated and preserved a lot of organic material that was found, and we will see later about it. However, on sites like that, and this is something that I say every time, that on sites that extend so much in space and in time, like the one in Lechaion, excavations and archaeology as we know it shouldn't be the only way to approach them. It's simply not enough. And obviously, what we did, as many other projects do, is that we did use a lot of geoarchaeology and geology and geomorphologists in a way, like while trying to determine the evolution of the site and of the harbor. And one of the tools that we used is to dig really deep geological drills within those artificial lagoons that you saw before, and you will see a bit more later. And through doing that, we were able to touch layers way deeper and obviously get a lot more information. So through that, this is from a paper that we published a couple of months ago with very important results and important work for us, because we were able to determine that the area and the harbor area was used, some of those lagoons were used already from the 13th century before Christ. So this really takes us a lot back in time. And I'm going to tell you later about how much work those results required. For now, you can just refer to the article, to the link that you see there. As I said before, the marsh area, the wetland area conditions already gave us an idea that the level of preservation of organic material would be quite good. And this is something rare in the Mediterranean Sea. And indeed, as we moved further inland in the harbor area, in this wetland area, we did see that, and we did find a lot of remains of organic material. What we didn't expect, and what was incredibly fascinating for us is to witness the same level of preservation on organic material in the outer harbor, in the open sea. And this is just some of the areas that preserve timber remains as part of the construction of the harbor. And again, what you will see now is very rare in the Mediterranean Sea, and Lechaion is one of the very few cases, if not the only one, that preserves so much material in terms of harbor construction. Among those remains, those timber remains that we excavated and documented, is what we call like the wooden caissons. A caisson is like a formwork, as Carl said before, a framework, let's say. This is a method that it's used even nowadays when they're building a harbor, is that they have those boxes and they place them at the seabed and then they build on top. So it's a very common way used from ancient times until today. And this is just from the excavation some years ago. And everything was preserved very, very well. And maybe some of you have, I always say, and this is not an exaggeration, that the wood in Lechaion underwater is preserved in excellent condition, and like some of the remains are in better condition than the coffee table in my living room. And really, I'm not even exaggerating. And as part of the documentation, obviously, we did a lot of work, and this is an attempt to do reverse engineering, which would have been a great tool but we're not allowed to do that, obviously, with remains, so we go and do things like that. So this is how one of them would look. There were many of those caissons in the area, either forming piers or jetties, or forming platforms, loading and unloading platforms, as one would expect in a harbor. And apart from the formworks and the caissons, we also had like a lot of different constructions with wooden posts, also made, also wooden, obviously. Some of them were just repair faces, some others were forming small bridges or smaller piers and jetties. Generally, the wooden structures sort of cover an area of around 1,200 square meters. So a lot of wood. In case you're wondering, I really don't want to go into details because this is a festive talk, but the wood is mainly oak and Greek fir and pine trees. All three species can be found in the mountains of the Peloponnese just above the harbor area and the harbor site. Which again, this, like a small parenthesis, means that obviously if you want to build something as massive as what you've seen so far, you will aim for your material to come from nearby. There is no reason if you have the material nearby, either it's stone or wood, you would bring it to build. And Corinth had that ability, obviously, and the resources to do so. Okay, so in 2018, 2019, the first phase of the excavation, as we call it, the first phase of the excavation, came to an end with a lot of results, as you saw some of them. Then we had to do this, like now today we had this musical intermezzo, we had to do a publication intermezzo. So we had to collect our material, which is very important, obviously. I'm not even being sarcastic now, it's very important for our work. So, and since we had a lot of material, we had to come up with a publication plan to write about all the results that we had at the beginning. And again, we were very privileged to get the financial support from the Carlsberg Foundation to go on with that publication, which is now underway. The first issue we had to tackle is obviously to put together the material that was really fresh off the field. It was a lot, and it was still under debate, because it's what I said before, we answered a lot of questions when we came to the site, but many more appeared during the process. So we had to somehow avoid the motto that you see there, the what you see is all there is. And I took that, it's this book by Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow. He's a psychologist, nothing to do with archaeology. This is a bestseller, a very good selling book. Quite interesting. He's writing, again, nothing related to archaeology, about like cognitive biases in the way we think. But then I was thinking that this can very much apply in academia and how we approach our material and how biased we are towards what we eventually write. And it's a very long discussion. I'm not going to go into that. But what you see is all there is how our mind, when we have our material and we have like 1, 2, 3 things, then we tend to overlook what is not there in front of us. And this is indeed the case in Lechaion, because really what you see, and you see a lot, you see a massive site with many remains, with structures being everywhere, but definitely it's not all you see, because there are more underneath, they're from different periods, they are overlapping, so like a riddle in many ways, like most of the archaeological projects. I'm not saying anything innovative in terms of archaeology. All the colleagues here will understand, hopefully, what I'm trying to say. So, like the question for us was how we would overcome what I said, and the idea was to combine, during this publication process, to combine forces with all of the project members, or most of them, that participated in the excavation, that they were on site, got their hands dirty on the site, exchanged ideas among us, shared concerns about the site and the place and the finds. So we had to bring the entire excavation, digging team, if you will, into the office to do the work of the second stage. The slight problem is that, again, fellow archaeologists will understand that, is when you're done with the field and you have 2 months of field work, then everybody goes back to where they are, where they live, to their normal jobs, to their families, wherever that is in the world. And again, as many projects, our project was an international and interdisciplinary project. So all of us were sort of scattered around the world, and we had to bring everybody somehow on the same page, under the same sort of guidance, to proceed with the publication. And let us not forget, because it's already 2 years after this global pandemic of COVID-19, and we, like usually as people, when we look back, we sort of keep the good memories. However, let's not disregard how that for a year and a half, what was happening changed a lot, even the way our societies are, and how we think, and what relationships we have among us. So when you have people around the world going through different pandemic measurements and obligations, and then having the center of the work in one country, in Greece in this case, that was really a struggle. And also, let's not forget what effect the pandemic had in one's health, not just physical, but also mental health, which is, to me, it's quite, it's a thing that we shouldn't forget. Anyway, So, as I said, the center of our work was the Danish Institute at Athens, clearly, our hosting institution. Our finds were preserved and stored at the Department of Underwater Antiquities in Athens, and obviously a lot of back and forth at the site had to happen. And what you will see in the next slides, please don't take it as a sort of like a viral Instagrammer's journey or anything like that. It's just really like academic work spread around the world. So you saw before that we did focus a lot on the wood, and Angeliki Zisi, the project conservator and a specialist in waterlogged wood, took over the task of identifying the different wood species that I said before, used in Lechaion, and also to identify what effect the weather conditions that I spoke before about and the environment had in the organic material, in a very sensitive organic material. And Angeliki did that from London, where she was living at that time, and from Oslo, where she is working and living today. And similarly, we really had to use dendrochronology so that we get like a relative chronology of the structures and of the wood. And therefore, we joined forces with Britta Lorentzen from the Cornell Tree Ring Laboratory, one of the leading tree ring laboratories in the world. And now, throughout our work and our communication and publication process, Britta herself also moved as the head of a new tree ring laboratory at Georgia University. Back to Europe, in Switzerland, where all the study and the writing for our ceramic finds happened by Dina Vafiadou, archaeologist based in Switzerland and in Zurich University. And obviously the ceramic finds, which were very important for us because they gave us like sort of through the study of them, we were able to determine the end of the use of the harbor, which is now, we can say safely, the 13th century AD. So 13th century BC to 13th century AD. That's the time frame for Lechaion. So Dina had traveled a lot to Greece because the finds, obviously the ceramic finds, are being stored at the Department of Underwater Antiquities, and collaborate with Paraskivi Micha, who is our other ceramic specialist and archaeologist at the ministry. And of course, you can't have an archaeological publication of ceramic finds without illustrations. Annie Houghton is the illustrator for that, and Annie was in Greece while doing the hand drawings, and then she moved permanently back to Sydney, where she comes from. So she did the digital work when she returned to Sydney. Again, all that, I hope you realize the mail exchange, the traveling, the back and forth, and sort of how hard it is to somehow, I don't even know the right word, not even in Greek, not just in English or in Danish. Anyway, the work that you saw before, the geoarchaeological work and the geomorphological work took place in France, mainly in Lyon and Toulouse, and some C14 dating in Poland. So again, there was a lot of work in a different place than Athens. I was talking to Antoine Sabrol, who is our lead geomorphologist in this project. Recently, I was talking to him about some parts of the work, and he said that just for the results that you saw before, that can date now the harbor back to the 13th century BC, it took them about 2,500 hours of laboratory work, and 45 people were involved in those laboratory analyses in France. People that I haven't even met. Like most of them, I don't know them. But again, this is how the work is done and eventually happen. And obviously Denmark, where the study and the work and all the plans that you saw were made by Fredrik Rasmussen and Bjørn Levin. So this was sort of our journey around the world for now, for the publication, that it's nearly done, to be honest. And throughout this process, we had to, and we wanted to, share those results with our peers. Not just the public, because we did have, personally myself, I think I had, over the last 3 years, I would say at least 50 public lectures around Greece. And to be honest, more than 50 site-specific tours at Lechaion. So communicating our results to the public was one thing, and we did that, and we really wanted to do that. But also it was very important to communicate and discuss what we are seeing with our peers in several conferences. And we did that, and this is some of them, again around Europe. And the way we decided to do that is exactly in the same way that we're trying to shape our publication. Different conference, different topic, and different speakers. So, Dina and Paraskivi and myself, we went to Croatia and we spoke about our finds, the ceramic finds, and how we believe we have this new type of Corinthian amphora, agreeing with other colleagues from the American school, that can be dated to the 13th century AD. Then we had presentations in conferences in Marseille, speaking specifically about the conservation of wood in the conditions that we had and to the extent that we found it in Lechaion. We had a very interesting conference that we spoke about the Roman period of the port in San Sebastian. We went to an underwater conference in Warsaw in Poland, where we focused on how we went about underwater while excavating in those conditions. We had in Malta, in Valletta, a very big maritime archaeology conference, one of the biggest in the world. Again, we went there with Antoine and Hugo Delisle, our geomorphologists, and we presented the results that you saw before. So that was the idea behind all that presence of ours in different conferences. And because you've heard already a lot of names, just to put a face on those names, this is our team on the field, in the publication, very hard-working people. Nothing obviously would have happened without them. It's very, and I'm going to close with another personal note, why not? It was the first time for me leading an international team academically. I have done it on the field. I think I did relatively well. Now, doing that behind an office is very different, and it makes you think a lot of how to approach people, how much you can push them, what you really need back from them. And as I said, it was the first time for me, so a very valuable lesson. I'm sure the publication will be very good, but at the end of the day, the lesson I am keeping is exactly that. And with that, I think I am done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the festive talk to heart and presenting the Lechaion Harbour Project while also giving a good insight into how archaeological projects work, I suppose. And now I would like to invite you all for the reception at the Danish Institute. It is a little walk. It is 10-15 minutes of a walk, but there will be Carlsberg beer, and there will be food, and there will most importantly be good company. So I hope you will all join us. And if I should just guide you a little bit, if you don't know the route, you can go around the museum and find the street called Bullis and take it to the end, and then go right, and you'll be very close to the Danish Institute. So I hope to see you there.